page 336, Siman Kuf Samech 167. We started Gemara last night about King Menashe. Remember coming back to Ashi in a dream? Right. And he said that you don't even know the halacha of where to cut bread from.
67?
No, 336?
336.
So we're in the right column on the bottom of the page. Ayin b'Sanhedrin. Look in Tractate Sanhedrin. That's what we read last night. Sanhedrin 102b. Shamar lo Menashe le Rav Ashi. The Menashe told Rav Ashi, שצריך לבצוע מהיכא דקרים בשולה. You have to cut the bread from where karim bishula, where something gets cooked. Karim.
It's a little toasty or something, a little bit
right.
like
Imagine
brown.
we would skip the Gemara yesterday. So he's referencing a Gemara that is so much richer, but you have to look it up to appreciate how rich that story is. Upiresh Rashi, Rashi gives two explanations how to understand what it means the bread is baked. Makom shenikarmin panea batanur, דהיינו מלמעלה ומסביבות הפת ומשולייב, from the place where the bread gets hard, which would mean not the inside of the bread, but somewhere on the top or bottom or side of the bread. The bread gets a crust.
Yeah.
That means it's cut from the crust of the bread. Uveshon acharon, and Rashi gives another example. Piresh Rashi explains, דהיינו ממקום שהלחם אפוי הרבה, from the place where the bread is most baked. Meaning, there's two ways to understand what Menashe told Rav Ashi. Either you cut anywhere in the crust, top, bottom, or you cut from the crust which is most baked. So which answer is it? Rashi says, the first opinion seems to be the correct one. What does that mean?
That it doesn't have to be the most baked part only, but the crust in general.
Remember, the minhag of the Sfaradim is to cut from the most baked place. The custom of Ashkenazim is to cut from the top, bottom, side of the bread.
Right.
Now look, Rashi says that the first opinion seems to be correct. The one that says you cut from the crust. Doesn't make from how cooked the crust is out of the crust. But look in the parentheses, of a Besefer Ha'orah, Hamiyuchas Rashi, there's a book that we have that is supposedly written by Rashi, but no one's sure it's written by Rashi, supposedly. I'm not so familiar with the history of that book. Katav, he writes there, that you should cut from the bread in the place where it is most baked. So not only do we have two opinions in Rashi, we have two opinions in the name of Rashi, which opinion he held was correct. There's classic Rashi, who says that cutting from anywhere in the crust is correct. And there's the second book that is attributed to Rashi, which says you should cut from the place which is most baked.
But it's cutting from, it includes the regular part of the bread. You just don't rip a piece of crust off.
No, you do.
Really? So that's like, because
Is
some
it
breads
hot?
are
You
really
mean any
thick,
place
hard
on the
crust.
I look at the bread before I do hummus. I look for the place where it's most baked. That's where I break the bread from.
Even if it's the thickest part.
Even if it's in the middle of the bachala, I rip that top piece off.
Just because of the
Well,
crust?
what about when you get those flat
Is
breads?
it-
There's nowhere.
Is it
That's
just
what
because of the crust?
Yeah, it's because of that's the most baked place. However, remember, there's two ways to read. You may not know it, but you always start cutting the bread from the side. Why?
Just eating
You're
the
following the
crust.
Ashkenazi opinion, which is you have to cut a little bit at the top and the bottom, which is the side of the loaf. That's where you start. That's what everyone here does. Because that's the way everybody does it.
Yeah, but it's like reading. You go
What if you
from
get
right to
those
left,
loaves
to
like-
left to right. Start in the
When
middle.
you used to bake bread, it didn't really have a crust per se. It was like soft all the way in and around. And
Yeah,
you
but
get
there's a
how it's
part
like
that's
that.
more colored than the rest.
That's true.
You have to understand,
It's all
maybe I can
relative.
explain here that there's, it's relative. It's all relative. It's right. You're not looking for the ashes. You're just looking for the place where it's most baked. We're going to have to see if this halakha is subjective at all. What if you don't like the part of the bread that's most baked? What's the reason for why you eat here? We didn't get to that yet.
Or maybe they'll say
We're just getting to where you
cut.
cut from, not why we do this. והנה רבים מרבותינו הראשונים פסקו, and a large amount of our Rishonim, the early rabbis, they rule on page 337 in the left column. Kilshon achron b'Rashi, like the last opinion of Rashi, shebotzeh mekom shalechem afu yefe yefe.
What's your last opinion? The second one that you're not sure if it's Rashi or not?
Beautiful,
No.
beautiful.
The Rashi gives two explanations, either
Yeah.
from any part of the
Oh,
crust or
okay.
from the part of the crust that's most crusty. Many of the Rishonim rule that way.
Yes, it's beautiful, very beautiful.
It's the place where the bread is baked well. Should I tell you who those rabbis are?
Please.
Look in the right column. You see where it says an aleph in Rashi's script? Right column. On page 337, the right column.
Yeah.
Top line. V'chen ketvu harif. That's what the Rif writes. These are big rabbis. They're not like some Rishonim. The Rif. Ve'harosh.
All the main people.
Shebotzeh mehechad b'shil shapir, where you cut where it was most baked. V'chen pasak harambam. That's what the Rambam rules. So you have the Rif, the Rosh, and the Rambam. I mean, that's Maran's opinion already right there. Sheino botzeh al hamakom shebishel yafe yafe. You cook from, you rip a place from where it was most baked. V'chen kadav b'chidushay yad Rama. It's not the Rama with an aleph, it's the Rama with a hey. וכן כתבו בספר האשכול והרעה ובסקרי אז והמאירי ורבנו אשר ורבנו ירוחם ורבנו מנוח על הרמב"ם ואורחות חיים ורבי דוד אבו דרהם ורבנו בחייה and the Sefer HaManhig. Okay, and this is like pretty much all of the Rishonim that we study. I'm back in the left column. ויש מהראשונים, and some of the Rishonim, פסקו, they hold בלשון ראשון בראשי, the first opinion of Rashi.
Wait, but you just read all these.
Names
Rishonim
are the names who
agree
rule that you cut from the most
the
baked
first.
part of the bread.
Okay, so then there are a few others.
Two others. שבוצע ממקום שהתחילה הפת להיאפות, then you cut from the place where the bread began to be baked, meaning the crust. ויש מהם שנחלקו מהיכן התחילה הפת להיאפות, אם מלמעלה ומלמטה. And then the rabbis there begin to argue which is the part where the crust forms first. Does the crust form first on the bottom? Or does the crust form first on the top? Without analyzing what they said, let's think about it logically. You put this, man, this is the loaf of bread. You put it into a brick oven.
Brick
Yeah, let's let's imagine that. Now, where's the fire in the brick oven?
underneath.
The bottom.
Bottom of the bread.
Underneath. Well, there's a grate and there's a wood underneath, and the heat comes up from underneath.
So the bottom portion gets cooked first, baked
It's
first.
not like a gas
Well,
oven.
not necessarily. It depends how the clay, how you created
Well,
the
that's
clay.
true.
I don't think-
This is a
Through the old oven.
Yeah.
Concave.
I don't think there's
Yeah.
an answer to this.
I remember cooking in an Orno in New Mexico. So.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, the very interesting
Bread
one
always
is
got
that
more cooked at the bottom.
Yeah, sure.
So you're supposed to turn the bread upside down and
Upside
eat
down
the-
bread.
Yeah.
And we also put like a pot of water in there to keep the bread moist.
Oh,
Yeah.
You know, Mechila, that I'm familiar with Arabic brick ovens, where the fire is inside.
Uh-huh.
It's either in the side or it's in the back or it's in the, and you bake it wherever the fire isn't. You're familiar with like American style pizza ovens, in which case there's also some kind of fire underneath that heats up. I don't know
Right.
exactly how those work. The bottom line is, here there might be an argument between, when you put the bread down, you ever barbecue? You put something down there, it sizzles.
Yeah.
sizzles, yeah.
Maybe that's what cooked first. Or is it the heat, the convection of the oven, which is baking the top of the bread?
You know,
Well,
these days
if
we
you
have
leave it
what they
too
call
long.
convection ovens, which are
Right,
done to
circulating
kind of-
air.
Yeah.
I have a connection. If you leave it a little too long, the part that gets dark first, black first, is the bottom, even in convection. It gets burnt.
So let's hear this part. You want to further complicate the Ashkenazi opinion?
Sure. When someone ever asks you, Jack. the
Well, let's
answer
do it.
is,
Let's, before we get there, let's do bet. Bet in the right column. You see in the right column? It's the first wide line in the right column. The right column is in Rashi's script. It's the first wide line. Bet. There's a bet in parentheses.
This?
Yeah.
That's a bad. Oh.
וכן כתב בספר הרוקח. And according to this opinion, which is the crust, in the Ashkenazi opinion, that's what the Sefer Rokach writes. וכן הביא בהגות מימוני, הגות מימוני קוראים זה, בשם ספר המצוות, the name of the book of מצוות, שיש לפצוע מלמטה ממקום שהתבשל מתחילה. That you should cut from the bottom, because that's where it gets baked first. וכתב בהגות מימוני, שכן נוהגים בצרפת, and הגות מימוני says that's the minhag in France, is to cut from the bottom of the bread. אבל באשכנז, but in Germany, נוהגים לפצוע מצד העליון, they cut from the top of the bread, מפני שאומרים, because they say ששם נתבשל תחילה, that's where the bread got baked first. וכן כתב בשיבולי הלקט, that's what שיבולי הלקט writes, שיבצע משולי הפת מאחד המתחיל בשולה. You should cut from the sides of the bread, because that's where it gets baked first. ועיין בספר הבתים שבוצע ממקום שהתחיל הפת להתבשל. Look in the book ספר הבתים that he writes, I'm skipping all the parentheses, that he writes that you should cut from the place where the bread began to bake. ושוב הביא דברי הרמב"ם שבוצע ממקום להתבשל יפה יפה, and he quotes his source as the Rambam, who says you have to start from where it's most baked. ואין בסמק ובו זרוע ובלחם משה וברשי ובתצוות שתחלקו בזה מיכאל חיי הבד. Now look at all those commentaries that argue about where exactly does the bread begin to bake first. But it gets more complicated than this. Go back to the left column. So you have the Sephardic opinion of where it bakes most. You have the Ashkenazi opinion of where it bakes first, or which is going to be the outside of the bread as opposed to the inside of the bread. Let's look in the left column. There's a bracket. You see, uvarishonim. In the left column, there's a bracket begins a line. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lines down in the left column. ובראשונים יש גרסאות שונות בזה. In the writings of the Rishonim, there are different versions of this piece of Talmud, which says Heichan de Karim Bishula, where it begins to get baked. Listen very carefully to the different versions. Yesh garsu meichad de Karim Bishula, where it is most baked. Karim, that's the word Kuf Reshud Mem. Yesh garsu meichad de Kadim Bishula. Some don't see it as a resh; they have it as a dalid, which would mean not where the bread got baked most, but where the bread got baked. Kadim, the first word there is, the root is
Forward.
First.
kodem, forward. But where the bread got baked first. V'yesh garsu meichad de gamir. Some have a version of the Gemara which says de gamir, which means where the bread finishes baking. So 3 different variants of this text. One which would say where the bread got baked most, one would say where the bread got baked first, one would say where the bread got baked last. Vayin babach, go look in the Bach, Rabbeinu Yasser, yes, he talks about this. והטור והשולחן ערוך כאן פסקו שיבצע ממקום שנפה היטב. Both the Tur, who's Ashkenazi, and Shulchan Aruch, Sephardic, they rule like the first opinion, which is to cut where the bread is baked first. Most, sorry. Thank you. ואין בכף החיים, look in the כף החיים, שהביא כן בשם הזוהר הקדוש, who says the Zohar also rules that first way.
Does it vary from bread to bread? Or do you make a rule?
If you make a roll,
Not a roll, a rule.
or a rule,
Yeah.
Sourdough.
now you know how we get variant text.
Yes, I do.
Did you say Karim or Kadim?
Yes. That's my roll.
What? Gamir, where the bread is finished baking.
He's on a roll.
Rikadim or Tukam?
He was-
Let's
he's on a
imagine
roll.
a regular
Oh.
Ashkenazi challah, yeah? A regular Ashkenazi challah. Probably the parts that'll be most baked are somewhere along the top. Where I've always found is somewhere like my wife's challah, somewhere along the top, right about here, there's a browner piece than the rest of them. That's where I rip the challah first.
Interesting.
Yeah, I'm that annoying person who takes the piece in the middle, like,
And-
why?
and
Why did you
if
do
you're
that?
left-handed?
No, so it could be the one over here.
Yes.
Normally it's like on a top side. That's my experience.
That's because probably the oven cooks somewhat unevenly, maybe.
Unevenly. You're right. In terms of flatbreads, which you're cooking normally on an even fire, like in a tortilla, you probably don't have half of the tortilla that is more baked than the other half of the tortilla.
It's like a different
Some-
plant.
Sometimes
It's common to get like a little spot more like brown.
more brown.
brownish,
So
yeah.
that's where you would make hamotzi. That's it's not so hard. See how a detail like this has so
Yeah.
much information packed onto it?
So there isn't a rule you have to look at the bread, basically.
You have to look at it.
You have to look at the bread and determine yourself.
Where
It's
you're
a
gonna cut.
subjective
Right.
thing.
That's right.
So the bottom line is the majority thinks it's the most baked part.
Yes.
And if someone disagrees with you,
You just hit them. No, violence is not the answer.
With a bread knife.
Oh.
it's a.
It's like the Zen that they go on the shoulder.
Okay, remember now, what does the Ramah say? The Ramah rules like the Ashkenazim, you have to cut from the crust, but a little from the top, a little from the bottom. That's what the Ramah writes.
I don't think anybody can.
It's.
They do.
You cut all the way through, it's a little from the top.
You ever seen anybody?
Oh, maybe, yeah.
They cut, can I use your bookmark? No, I don't, I'm not gonna use your bookmark. Can I use this paper? They cut a slice off the challah, and they kind of do this. They fold it, and they take out.
Mhm.
Yeah?
Really?
That's where the pizza idea comes from.
They're reading from the top and the bottom.
Oh.
Now, I don't even know if people do this because they know. I don't think anyone knows that there's some kind of Ashkenazi inyan here, because that's what they saw all the people before them doing before them, and it's kind of like that's just the way you eat challah. We didn't think about eating challah. Like, you know, someone might come up one day and eat challah with a fork and a knife, but you're gonna think they're weird. But in their family, they might think it's normal to eat challah with a fork and a knife. Just give them some time. Now, let's read the Ramah. The Ramah, we read the Ramah already. Let's read why he writes what he writes. If you look on page 337, the bottom left column. Left, it says the bet.
Yeah.
כתב הרמ"א בהגה, the Ramah writes, יחתוך מעט מצד העליון והתחתון. You should cut a little bit of bread from the top and a little from the bottom. Why? There's no opinion that holds that. The opinions either hold you cut from the top, or you cut from the bottom, or you cut from the most baked place. But nobody says the top and the bottom. וביארו התז ומגן אברהם, and the Taz and the Magen Avraham, both commentaries on the Shulchan Aruch, Ashkenazi commentaries, the Svira that he holds, the Ba'inan Ma'atzad, that you have to take from the side, look on page 338, Shematchil Le'afot. Ramah holds you have to take bread from the side where it begins to bake. וכיוון שיש אומרים שהוא הצד העליון, because some of the opinions believe that it's the top of the bread who bakes first, remember the people of Germany, ויש אומרים שהוא הצד התחתון, and some say that it's the bottom part of the bread, the חכמים of France. לכן כתב הרמ"א, therefore the Ramah writes, שיבצע משני הצדדים לצאת ידי שניהם. You should take from both the top and the bottom to fulfill both opinions.
It seems that they had different oven design.
Oh,
Perhaps.
that would probably be a simpler
Yeah.
solution, right?
Yeah.
Skip the parentheses. V'katav habach sheken minhag, and the bach writes that's the custom of the Ashkenazim to cut both the top and the bottom. וכן הסכימו כמה אחרונים, and there are a few אחרונים who agree with him. Who are they? Look on left and Dalit. In the left column there's a Dalit, almost where we are now. וכן כתבו, Dalit, yeah. וכן כתבו העטרת הזקנים, the עטרת הזקנים writes בשם מהרש"ל, the name of the מהרש"ל, רבי שלמה לוריה. והסוד בלולה, ובשולחן ערוך הגאון רבי זלמן, who's הגאון רבי זלמן? The first Lubavitcher Rebbe.
Oh, really?
He rules this way too.
Oh.
I always tell people, if you would only quote us as much as my rabbis quote you, we'd be in a wonderful world. V'chaye Adam, Rabbi Abraham Danzig, he's the great Ashkenazi rabbi before the Mishnah Berurah, one of my favorite chachamim. A special Ashkenazi chacham. He worked for a parnasah, and he didn't let himself support from Torah. On his grave, the only thing he asked you should write on his grave is, I did my business dealings honestly.
Is he the one who didn't have a beard?
No, I mean, I don't know. I don't think so. There are a few chachamim that have beards, but
No, remember you talked about something.
it was not
That
this.
was clean shave.
I told you about Rabbi Simcha Bunim of Peshischa. It was a Hasidic Rebbe who trimmed his beard. That's like an evil crime in the world of Hasidim. He looked very put together. He was a pharmacist. He wore short suits and stuff. He looked very modern and with
For
fashion.
Europe,
The Chesed Alafim, and Chesed Alafim, that's the Peleoetz. It's a Peleoetz book of Halakha. Okay, let's go back. Vayen Biur Halacha, and the Rebbe Kalm look in the Biur Halacha. Sha'achronim etiku d'vrei Rama mipnei shebazeh yitzei l'chol hadot. That the reason why the Chachamim all seem to rule like the Rama is because the Rama is making peace among all the opinions, and you fulfill all the opinions by ruling like the Rama. Chevet, let's get real. There's always this tendency in Halacha. In fact, I wish I had a book here with you. Rav Soloveitchik once said that, you know, there's a famous group called Chasidei Ashkenaz. Most people don't know this, but Chasidei Ashkenaz were, I'm not an expert on Chasidei Ashkenaz. These are not the Hasidim that you know of with fuzzy hats. They're Ashkenazim, but they're not. These are not the Hasidim Harishonim that Talmud mentions. They were pious ascetics of sorts who prayed most of the day, 3 hours. Every Amidah took them 3 hours. The Talmud, Masah Brachom. Chasidei Ashkenaz are in the medieval ages. There's a group of overly pious Ashkenazi. They're maybe the precursor to Kabbalists, if you had to think about it that way. They were extremely pious, extremely ascetic, extremely morbid in terms of their approach to the destruction of the temple and exile, and much of the negativity that you pick up on, the guilt, the hard things that you find in Ashkenazi Jewish culture, comes from there, even without people. For example, the customs of mourning in the 9 days are not a Sephardic thing. Rambam doesn't know about them. All of a sudden, Maran rules not to do, not to eat meat, not to do that, the laundry. All of these things are originally found in the writings of Chasidei Ashkenaz. They live a lifestyle where they mourn constantly over the destruction of the temple. You think about, now I don't know if the origin is Dafka Chasidei Ashkenaz, but there's an Ashkenazi custom to wear a kittel on the day of the wedding.
Right.
Yeah, why?
Mourning Yerushalayim. Because it's a sign of death.
A sign of death. Why would you have a sign of death at your wedding? What is a kittel? People get buried in their kittel. I did a funeral recently.
Jokes about that.
Kittel is a burial shroud. It's a white shroud made of very simple material, so it can decompose properly. That Ashkenazim wear
Yom Kippur.
Yom Kippur, weddings,
Yeah.
and
Shabbat.
no, actually not. Believe it or not, because even though it's death, it's not sad. It's not a sad wedding. Where else? Some have a custom of the Pesach Seder to wear.
That's right.
Oh, yeah.
That's right. And some Ashkenazim have a custom by wear it one last time. Hoshana Rabbah.
Oh.
The last day of Chol Sukkot, because also it's
Yeah,
the day of judgment.
yeah,
of
yeah.
sorts.
Everyone.
I don't actually know how old that custom is, because it seems to me
I've seen
that's
that.
like, because it's like Yom Kippur we wear it, but the original customs in Ashkenaz are specifically by weddings and by Yom Kippur. Why on earth would you ever, my wife's Chassidut has a famous the Rebbe. His name is the Detroiter Rebbe. Sounds funny? It's no different than Lubavitcher Rebbe or Vizhnitzer Rebbe or Gerrit. Those are just names of cities. Like the San Diego Vitcher Rebbe one day might be there. Who knows who's going to be that person? It's just as normal to say that as to say the Belzer Rebbe. It's not nothing different. And he is called the Detroiter. He didn't really live in Detroit, but he passed away in Detroit. He was traveling through Detroit, and when he passed away, they found that he had packed for that trip his burial shrouds. And they figured there must be something that he knew that he wanted to be buried there, so they buried him there. He's still buried. My wife's father travels every year to the grave of the Detroit Rebbe, from Israel to Detroit, of all places.
Wow.
Detroit, Michigan. They just sold their synagogue there. It was there for many years, but I guess they want to upkeep it. But they go there every year, and the community, the Jewish community of Detroit, knows. Oh, the Hasidim come for the Rebbe's anniversary. It's a thing that people have burial shrouds, and you take them out of your closet for moments in the year where it makes sense to wear your burial shrouds. I have to explain to you, if my grandmother would know that somebody owned burial shrouds, she was too superstitious to walk into their house. Let alone you're going to wear the burial shrouds, my grandma would never look at you until you look like a ghost. By the Sephardic world, burial shrouds, they don't even talk about death when people die, let alone people are alive. There's some kind of, but according to Chasidei Ashkenaz, that mentality, the reason you wear burial shrouds at your wedding is so you don't get too happy. Don't be too happy on the day the temple is destroyed. Chasidei Ashkenaz, Yom Kippur, you want to do tshuva? You want to remember that tomorrow you might be dead. Don't think you have next year and next year and next year. You might die tomorrow. It's amazing that as the Hasidim show up on the scene, they start to manipulate these teachings as we wear white, like angels wear white. It's white like happiness, like a bride wears white. It has nothing to do with any of those things. And it always makes us proud when certain Hasidic groups go, we're the happy Hasidim, not like those Ashkenazim that are those Lithuanians, they're so morbid. So why do you wear a kittel? Because it's not a. This is where it comes from. Many of the mourning customs you'll find in the writings of Maran were things that, for whatever reason, you should know, it makes the gung ho Rambam is very upset. Why did you adopt that from the Ashkenazim? Why?
That's what the Rambam would consider to be their own imagination.
Yeah. So right. This is. But it's the thing. You have to know the reality is that much of the Judaism you see today is affected by the Hasidim Rishonim. The Hasidim Rishonim, as pious ascetics, also managed to do all kinds of things your average person can't do. So, for example, Hasidim Rishonim have no problem being strict in halakha. When they see two opinions that contradict each other, they try to fulfill both. In Sfarad, what do you call a rabbi who makes halachic decisions? A posek. How do you say a break in Hebrew? How do you say period? Like when you make a stop in a sentence.
Hefsek.
Hefsek.
Yeah.
Psik. 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 Pasuk.
Pasuk.
We need to cut. We cut the Siddur into psukim.
So, pasuk.
The job of a posek is to know how to see a myriad of opinions and know how to cut and throw the ones out that he doesn't need and observe only the one he does need. Along come Chasidei Ashkenaz, say, why do you have to be posek? Maybe there's two opinions and they're both right on some spiritual sphere. We don't know how to differentiate between them. And we're not telling the average person to do this, but they're Hasidim. These Chasidei Ashkenaz were not the children, they were real pious people. And they decided, hey, we're going to start this mentality where you can do all of the opinions, or as many of the opinions as you possibly can. Later, this does affect the Sephardic community too. But that's where you get this custom. Someone recently told me about their mezuzot. Their mezuzot are sideways.
Yeah.
I know that in Morocco there are Sfaradim that also put their mezuzot sideways. Forgive me, Chevra, I'm not afraid. I don't mean to hurt anyone's custom. But I told them it's okay to go home now. To take the mezuzah off of your doorpost, make a bracha and put it straight. Because all those years that it's been sideways, you didn't get a mitzvah of mezuzah. I'm not afraid to tell you that. There are two opinions in the poskim about how you hang a mitzvah. Either straight or straight. But it has either vertical or horizontal.
So this is like reconciling two opposite opinions.
This is exactly what it is. Along comes the Chachamim and say, hello, we're afraid, which one is right? So let's lay the mezuzot sideways. Now real Ashkenazim...
You mean an angle?
At an angle, yeah, right, not sideways. Real Ashkenazim, I mean those who are truly Torah scholars, they're very careful to only tilt the mezuzah a drop. That way, even because everyone knows Shulchan Aruch and Rambam rule that it's supposed to go straight. But even according to them, okay, your hand was just a little crooked. But you see people's houses, mamash is like this.
Yeah.
They're trying for the 45.
They're trying to do. Now, if you know anything about logic, between two opinions didn't satisfy any of the opinions.
No.
The
Either
Gaon
one
of
or the
Vilna
other, yeah.
is of the opinion that it's forbidden to hang a mezuzah like this. He's one of the greatest Chachamei Ashkenaz who ever lived. What I'm telling you now is not just for Sfaradim. If you want to hang a mezuzah like this, you can. I mean, I'm not telling you you should. Maran didn't rule that way. Am didn't rule that way. But Am Yisrael, for thousands of years, since we got a Torah on Har Sinai, put the mezuzah either like this or like this. For the last 1,000 years, Am Yisrael either puts the mezuzah like this or like this. So the two opinions that we have. Along come it could be Chachamim, real Chachamim, and they decided to make a third opinion. Why on earth would you, so many thousands of years after the giving of the Torah and Har Sinai, want to make a new opinion of how you hang your mezuzah?
I don't see why.
You know where we have this problem too? By tefillin. Now, if Rabbi Atiyah was here, he could explain it to you better. There is a problem in how tefillin are made, written, in which there seems to be an opinion in halakha that there should be a certain break inside of the tefillin space. Like, you click enter, make a space. Rambam and Maran hold that break nullifies the tefillin. The Taz, Tuwei Zahav, was one of the great Ashkenazi Acharonim, maybe 200, 300 years ago. He felt that for whatever reason, it's not for the scope of our shiur tonight, it's important to have a space in the tefillin. And he instituted a new chumah that in certain Ashkenazi circles, you'll start making a space in the tefillin. Something that was not done, not by the Rambam, not by Maran, not by the Poskinai, even by the Ashkenazim. And here comes a problem. The problem is, the rule is that if you're in a place and you get Yemenite tefillin, or Sephardic tefillin, or Ashkenazi tefillin, or Chabad tefillin, that you can put on all. I mean, you can maybe prefer to put on your own kind of tefillin. That's a preference. I want this kind of writing, that kind of writing. But the bottom line is, you're in a bit of knesset. You don't have your tefillin. You put on the tefillin rather than a bit of knesset. That's okay. You borrow your friend's tefillin. Who cares what which ethnicity he comes from? But ever since the Ashkenazi Sofrim began doing this, according to the Taz a few hundred years ago, what has happened is that according to the Sfaradim and the Temanim, and anybody who follows the Rambam or the Shulchan Aruch, those tefillin that the Ashkenazim wear are actually psulim. They're invalid. You cannot make a blessing on this tefillin. According to the Rambam, this tefillin is not kosher. You know the rule? If it ain't broke, don't fix it. This is exactly what happened. Someone tried to fix something that wasn't broken. We can have this sure in a different time. It involves details of safrut that we have to get into. The bottom line is there are certain Ashkenazi groups that didn't buy into it. For example, many of the Hasidim, because they were already not involved in the Ashkenazi community at that point, they, like Chabad, if I'm not mistaken, they don't do this. So if you have a choice, as a person who follows Maran, from what I understand, I asked Rabbi Atiyah if Chabad puts his break, and he told me no. If I'm not mistaken, that's what he told me. So if you, as a person who follows Maran, have a choice to either borrow a pair of Chabad tefillin or Ashkenazi tefillin, and you don't know what it's like inside, you're not going to open it up and check, and you can't. You should choose to put, in my opinion, you should choose to put on the Chabad tefillin. Someone go tell it to somebody Chabad so they can believe that I said something like that. Because according to that, so what that it's a different handwriting, or that it's much bigger than other tefillin, or whatever Chabad does that's different. But the halakha part of the tefillin is kasher. No, he sells to Ashkenaz. For some Ashkenazim, those tefillin that they wear are more kosher to them than the other ones. See, but this happens. What happens is when you try to make two opinions happy, you don't make any of them happy. It's like anything else in life that you try to do. You have to make choices. You have to be a posek. You have to know how to. I remember asking Albert, but look, Chama they would say, Moshe Feinstein, they argued that. He says, what do you want? I came to a Chumash. Chumash is a famous argument, Rambam and Ramban. My heart was with one of them, but Pshat is like the other one. And Albert says, Rabbi Yonatan, they can't both be right because they directly contradict each other. And you can't rule because your heart is telling you. You have to know how to use your mind and make a proper decision. I said, but it hurts. He's like, in life, part of being a Talmid Chacham is to hurt a lot. And to have to know how to cut and make decisions. Being indecisive is not a valid approach. Rav Soloveitchik, though, he records that one of the character traits of Chazidei Ashkenaz was that following all the opinions somehow created, instead of what we would view that as being, you're not following anybody, they viewed it as we're following everybody. And Rav Soloveitchik begins that trend, where you see it now, it's no longer Sephardic or Ashkenazi, but there's a trend of those who say you have to choose an opinion, and there are those who would try to make all the opinions happy. And Rav Soloveitchik attributes that, historically, to this group of Hasidei Ashkenaz.
So for Ashkenazic Jews, it's not a minhag, but it's a particular following of the halakha.
Right, I guess it depends how long something has to exist for it to be a minhag. I mean, it's been going on for 200 years, that might be a minhag.
Well, I mean, I didn't really give it a lot of thought, but I do think they have a space in there.
You do?
Well, it depends. There are spaces in tefillin, but which space? We also have spaces in tefillin. Just which space is it? I remember once reading an article from an Ashkenazi sofer who rebelled against this. He said, I'm done doing something that even Ashkenazim didn't used to do. You know, you find certain. I say I'm not an expert in safrut. I don't like to speak about areas of halakha where I'm not an expert. It's embarrassing to me I'm not an expert in that, but I'm not. There are certain things you sometimes read that posek will write. You know, certain letters was written a certain way, or this was, and you see that we didn't do it that way. And see now certain sofrim are trying to do it again. One that I recall is a certain letter should have a white space of another letter inside of it when you write it. You see most of the sofrim didn't do that. So now someone wants to do it. I don't know what you do with that information.
This has to do perhaps a lot with Kabbalah, maybe something.
Some
prior
can have to do
to-
with Kabbalah. I don't know none about the feeling, but some of these things do happen from Kabbalah. You have to remember that most of the time, I'm not a Mekuba, right? Most of the time, though, the things that people do according to Kabbalah are not meant to contradict halakha. So even if that's not what halakha says, it's not going to be a direct violation of halakha. And like I mentioned yesterday, if something is a direct violation of halakha, I don't care who said it, you can't do it. And that's always going to be the difference between those who are actually grounded and study Kabbalah and those who don't. there are certain things that have crept into Jewish practice long before, even in communities where people didn't follow Kabbalah. But already those Kabbalist customs took a hold, and what are you going to do now? It's hard. You're going to start taking things away. I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm not saying that people haven't advocated for it. Some people advocate against it. They want everything from Kabbalah. I'm not here to stick my head inside. But one has to have a healthy understanding of halakha to be able to make the decisions. And if they don't, they ask a Talmid Chacham advice. Who knows how to make such halachic decisions? This whole attitude of following both opinions and therefore neither is interesting to me. Now, when do you follow both opinions? If you don't know what the halakha is. The Ramah is not trying to just be burdensome on people. It's eating bread. You can eat the slice in such a way that you eat the top and the bottom. And if there are legitimate rabbis who are legitimately arguing about the text of the Gemara, so then why not try to fulfill all those opinions? And that's the reason why people go along with it. It could be that in this case, it's not a big deal. There's no major, there's no major consequence for following this compromise. But it shows a certain type of approach to halakha. One which is not able to decide between opinions. You find this a lot, unfortunately, a lot. It's like, what bracha do you make on a chocolate-covered raisin? Make a ha'etz on an apple and shakol on water, and then you won't have to deal with this. Blessed. Now
Even with rice.
that solves the problem, but it doesn't answer the question. Yes? So I'm too afraid to answer the question. If you're too afraid, so step aside and allow those people who are not afraid. I've been driving recently, I've noticed a lot of people doing crazy things on the road. Hashem should save us from the rest of it. First of all, the phones that people are using on the road, I want you to know, a person is driving using their phone. A person you are running around as a rodef. The halakha of rodef is that a person like that is put to death before they kill somebody. Like someone running the street trying to stab you. There's no text message that can't wait, and if it can't wait, so pull over. I was driving today and I saw something like this. It wasn't even. How do you drive like this?
Yeah.
It's not even. He wasn't even like trying to do this. He was out of it.
Yeah.
Then what happens if a car breaks or someone like today when I was turning onto a red, because someone ran into the middle of the street. It was like sunset time, so it was dark. Someone just bolted into the street. They wanted to get to their car quickly. Crazy, but you're gonna bolt to the street in front of a 12-passenger van? Choose a bicycle, not in front of a. Thank God that I wasn't talking to my wife. Okay, whatever. I was focused on, and I stopped. I'm still scared. It happened before I got here. What could have happened?
I've had people cross the street in front of me, not even look. They're looking at their phone.
Look at their phone.
They don't even know there's a car in
Just
front
last year, remember there was
Right.
somebody who was here,
Not
Sunset
aware.
Cliffs. He was on his phone. He walked right off the cliff.
Yeah.
Died. I'm not laughing at the person. It's very scary. When I was in New York recently, they had signs of like, you can stop texting in the crosswalk because you want to make it to the other side of the crosswalk.
Yeah.
It's a real thing. In Israel, by the way, police officers, when I was there, I don't know if it's still around today. In Israel, the laws change every other weekend. But when I was there, you can get a ticket for using your phone in the crosswalk, even talking on the phone. When you cross the street, even if it's green and it's your light, you don't use a phone. It's sad that we have to make such rules, but it's unfortunate. And then I tell you, so I'm not talking about the people who are texting or driving. I'm talking about people. My other diagnosis of drivers on the road. There are people who are afraid to drive. I don't know how to explain this to you. They lack the confidence to drive properly. When a person lacks the confidence to drive, essentially they're becoming a dangerous driver for other people. I didn't speak to a police officer about this, could be they disagree with me. The person is scared, the lanes change, I had a person that was merging onto the highway the other day, and they were merging, they thought there were no cars, suddenly they saw me. So what do you do when you see a car about to merge into your tail?
Step on your brakes.
So they should speed up, no?
Yeah, just speed
That's
up.
what any person who knows what to do then,
Speed up.
they slammed on the brakes.
That's what they do. Scary people.
I had to go around into another lane, around them, around my whole car.
Oh, wow.
Baruch Hashem, there was nobody to the left of me.
Yeah.
It's happened
But
to me
that
3
reaction
times.
of slamming on the brakes,
Was
is
on
very
the-
dangerous.
Was on the 52.
it's on the 52 when they come from the 805 onto the 52. You
is
know
the
that
most
ramp
dangerous
before?
Where they're
road
merging?
It's
in
terrifying.
southern San Diego.
It's really,
Because the way it's set up with the on-ramps.
I live in the canyon. Do you know how many nights there are helicopters and police cars in the canyon?
Oh, yeah. People
car
go off the
crashes.
side there.
It's very
a
scary.
dangerous road.
Yeah.
Now, what I'm telling you
Yeah.
is something like this. In general, those who are scared lack confidence. There are those who are scared that HaShamayim, whatever reason they're scared. It could be they're scared because they're incompetent. It could be that they're scared. Some people know too much to make decisions. It's also a different kind of paralysis. But those who are paralyzed are unable to make decisions. Oftentimes, even in the world of medicine, when a person says if they were ever going to be paralyzed, they wish for their wife or their husband to make medical decisions for them that they're not able to do. The person is paralyzed, they can't make a decision, step aside and allow someone else to make decisions. For those poskim who are too afraid to make choices, that's okay. That's fine. Nobody's going to force you to be a posek. Step aside and allow those poskim who know how to make choices. Our parents had a word for them. He called them Yirei HaHorah, like Yirat Shamayim. They have awe of making decisions. They take halakha so seriously they're not able to actually take halakha seriously. And he used to always say, this posek, don't say that he was scared, just say that he was in awe of halakha. That's what you should say. Like that way you respect who they are, but you know that this kind of posek you don't always have to take seriously.
Is the rice thing part of that thing too?
Yeah, see, we don't have that
People
problem
who
with the rice.
will only even zone up before
With the
they
bread
do
and
it.
that. The rice, rabbis already
Or the
ruled that
workaround.
bracha and rice is a mizonot with the boy nefashot after. It's the only kind of type of its kind. To wash in order to eat rice. I know somebody, he's not sure if donuts are bread or cake. Why? Don't have why. So he'll only eat donuts as part of a meal. If he wants to eat a donut, he'll wash bread. Now, then what about according to the opinion that holds that it's a cake?
Yeah.
In which case, according to some opinions, you'd have to make another bracha anyway. Oh, well, that's a different problem. You can't live like it creates a certain obsessive, compulsive mentality of every halakha, every day, and these people are. It's very terrifying. I don't know of a world before us. By the way, I'm talking both Ashkenazim and Sephardim. By Ashkenazim, it's one generation older. It's my grandparents' generation. By a person who's in my generation, it's going to be their great-grandparents' generation, who's Ashkenaz. Yes? That generation of people, I'm not sure you found as many observant, obsessive, compulsive Jews. Halakha was pretty normal. You kept kosher, you kept Shabbat. I don't know that anybody remembers being taught when they were young that you can't take the bone out of the chicken in this direction or the chicken out of the bone in that direction. They all kept Shabbat, but those things, it's not a disregard for halakha. Halakha was meant to be natural. We live in a generation where halakha is meant to be unnatural. And what you see is the people who observe halakha, they almost look like they're taken over by some kind of demon. I don't know, lacking a word in it. Like everything they do is they're trembling when they're doing
It's
it.
an invasion of body snatchers. It's called pods.
Shouldn't be that way.
Paz?
P-O-D-S.
P-O-D-S.
Yeah. They eat you, the body snatchers, the
The
plant.
body touch.
Yeah.
It's like when someone overthinks something. You're overthinking this. It's
Yeah,
really not what
overthinking.
you think it is. Or slow down a little bit. It's very unhealthy. It's very unhealthy. In fact, and I'm going to end my show because I know what time it is. There's a famous Ashkenazi rabbi recently who put out a tshuva about observance of halakha for people who truly suffer from obsessive compulsive disorder. Meaning, we're dealing with a world of people who sometimes their observance of halakha has driven them to mental insanity.